Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Let's discuss about an API into this session. We'll see what is API, we'll see the functionalities of API, we'll see how API is going to use with the real-time web applications, and we are going to see how we can create an API, how we can integrate it, and how we can test the specific API. So everything about the API we are going to cover into this session, and after this session you'll be having no doubt. According to this, we'll see we'll using ChatGPT for creating an API. We'll use the modern technologies as the world is evolving to the modern specific scenario. We need to be updated towards it. It's not like everything we have to type it and understand. The main thing the ChatGPT is an amazing tool which is going to give us whatever we require, and we can take that specific things and integrate it and test it into our coding part over that. So first, going with the concept of an API. So we'll understand with an web application how API is going to work and what is the use of the API and how the API is going to get the data from the database and push it to the front end pages. So we'll understand that specific part over here. So coming back to my web application over here. So arkprocoder.com is my personal website. So I have used an framework, and a framework is using an API to get the data from the database and push it to the specific web page over here. So now imagine when I click on to the home page over here, if I just go to the project sections over here. So when I go to the project sections, so you will be able to see a lot of data, right? A lot of projects you are able to see. You can see here we are having a text here, and we have some images are coming up over here, and a lot of projects, and I am having it here. When I open to this no more, I can able to see the entire details of this specific project over here, right? Some data we are able to see it over here. So here, to do this specific operation, an API is acting a major role into it. So how? You can ask me a question, how? So now I'm just going to right click and inspect the element over here. So when I inspect it, I'll be getting an inspect element tool over here, right? So when I open the network tab over here, when I open a network tab, so now see, we don't have anything over here, right? When I just click on to the specific project page, or just if I just refresh this specific page over here. So when I refresh the specific page, you saw something happen onto the left hand side of the thing in the network tab, right? You can see here it is initiating an XHR response. Basically it is hitting an API for a specific URL, and it is getting all the data from the API over here. You can see when I see here, you can see if I just click on to your projects here, if I come back to the headers here, you can see it is the specific URL. You can see it is just hitting this specific endpoint, https crkprocoder.com/API/projects. We have one specific API. That API response is request is a get request, basically get the data from this specific response. When it is hitting this specific API, we are getting some kind of a response over here. You can see here I got some of the response here. You can see first I'm getting reviews of this specific person. Anis has been reviewed, comment he has added, and user is null. You can see I have, along with the reviews, we have some data on the specific whatever you are seeing here. You can see we have a name, medical management system over here. You can see here there is a medical management system, an image I am able to load. I am able to load the project description, backend, installation link, code link, ratings, everything I am able to get the specific response from this specific API. Whatever the data it is giving us, whatever the response it is giving us back with the help of a get request with the API, whatever the data we got in the response, we are just binding that specific data into our front end pages over here. So that is what will happen into the entire web application. So this was the API. When I click on to this API, you can see it is the data which we are getting it. You can see this is one kind of an API here. So we'll test with this API with the help of a get request. Okay, we'll add this URL link, and we'll able to see into our specific coding part. Also we'll understand how we can create this API and hit that endpoint and get the data response from the database. You can see whatever the data we are having it's just basically getting the data, and whatever the data we saw, that is just binding to the front end part over here. So this is basically about the get request API. When I talk about the post request, when I come back to a login page over here, I'm just going to clear a screen. If I just hit on some specific data, if I just tell here as anis@gmail.com, and if I just simply enter some kind of a password now, when I hit a button sign in, you can see I'm getting a no login found request is with the invalid credential. With the left hand side, you can see we again hit one specific API who is going to take us the data from the specific form, and it is going to check whether the data is correct or not. Then it is going to give us some response. If I hit on to this data, you can see it is giving us a response: no active account found with this specific given credential. It means we are providing a long information, right? So this is also one kind of an API. If I see you an header part, you can see it is hitting for this specific URL. If I just copy this URL and if I just paste it over here, you can see here also I can just log in it here. It is asking me username and a password over here. So whenever we give the correct credentials, it is just going to give us the token. So basically this is a Django REST framework. I have developed this project and we have used a REST APIs for specific operation over here. So this is about the get request. That is about the, basically I said about the post request over here. So along with that we have update, we have put request, we have delete request over there, and we have head request. So all these things will comes under the API over here. So now overall concept of an API here is basically API is one specific one specific endpoint where we are requesting some data from the database, or we are sending some data to the database with the help of the API. Or if you wanted to update, we can update it over there. If you wanted to delete anything, we are just going to hit one endpoint that is responsible for deleting any kind of a data from a database or any kind of the place, any kind of a container data. So we are using an APIs over here. So this is all about the real time. I have shown you with an web application how it is going to work over there. Now I'm just going to give one more overview onto this specific API part here. So I'm just going to just tell you one practical graphical representation of an API over here. Now imagine we have this specific API, right? So I'm just going to show you how it is going to be there. Now if we have some kind of a browser over here, imagine we have some browser over here. So we have some browser. This is your browser over here, okay, and we have the servers. So basically this is a server where we are, where our web application has been hosted over here. This is my server over here, this is my server over here, this is our browser over here, okay. So whenever you are requesting any kind of a pages over here, how you are going to pass the request? Suppose I wanted to get the data from the database. So basically imagine I'm opening just my website over here. When I'm hitting this arkprocoder.com, imagine I'm just requesting for https arkprocoder.com. I'm hitting this specific endpoint over here. Imagine user is requesting for this specific request, okay. When he is requesting over here, it is basically a get request over here. Imagine this is just basically a get request over here, and server is going to give us the response, right? Server is just going to give us the response over here. It is just going to give us the response, and we are just going to bind it to the browser over here. So how we are going to manipulate this get request or a post request or a whatever it is? So basically it is, there will be one specific middleware that you can call it as a third party, that is basically Ajax over here, that is asynchronous JavaScript and XML over here. So what it is going to do, it is basically calls with the JS call. Basically whenever we are hitting an request, it will be basically a JavaScript call, basically where it will be a JavaScript call. It might be into a React or Angular or a normal modern JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript. Basically when we are using an Ajax over here, we are going to hit one XHR object. We are just going to create one XHR object. That XHR object is going to use the HTTP request over here. In the HTTP request, if suppose I wanted to send a get request, I can do the post request, I can do the put request, I can use the delete request, whatever you want you can just set. We are going to pass it with the request headers, and once we pass with this one, server is going to give us the basic response over here. It is just going to give us the response, the XML response. It might be XML response or a JSON data over here. So what is JSON over here? What is JSON? It is a JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation over here. Now if I just show you this real time, you can see here when I hit this specific data, it is basically a JSON data, right? It is basically a JSON data. It is returning as a response. It is JSON data. You can see content type is an application JSON over here. When we are hitting this specific endpoint, we are going to make use of XHR object, that is a Ajax request, where Ajax request is going to accept the endpoint. It is going to accept the endpoints of an API. It is going to expect the endpoints of an API, either a get or a post or a put or a delete, whatever. And once we are going to pass the request application JSON data or whatever it is, we are just Ajax is going to use as a middleware to get the data from the API or to send the data to the API endpoints over here. Okay, it might be an application JSON or a text or a plain data or whatever it is. Okay, so these are the things is going to happen. So mainly modern Ajax is going to use either an XHR object, or we are going to XHR is basically going to perform using Axios, or it might be using a fetch request over here. So we can just use this specific modern things and or XML HTTP request. Basically, we are going to create an XHR object using Axios or a fetch or XML HTTP request to send the data for the API or to get the data from the endpoints, that is the API over there. So this is how the entire process of application programming interface works, and is basically APIs are mainly used with the REST frameworks or SOAP framework over there. Okay, so basically stateless transfer protocol, or where we are going to mainly use with the HTTP request over there. So this is how the things is going to work. Now we have seen how it is going to work with graphically, and we have seen, I've shown you with the real-time web application example also here. Now we are going to create one specific endpoint. Now we are going to create an actual endpoints, how to create a API. So that is the next specific procedure over there. So coming back to the ChatGPT. So I'm just going to use the ChatGPT for creating a project because I don't want it to type and make it a video length here. So let's use ChatGPT to create a end-to-end API for get request, post request, put request, and a delete request using Node.js over here. So first and foremost, you need to install Visual Studio Code. VS Code install. So just click on to the VS Code install, where we are going to code it. Open with the Windows 10, and this is where you can just click on to this one. You can see it started downloading it here. I'm just going to cancel it. So once you download the Visual Studio Code, it's very simple installation. Just install it. Once you have installed, you need to download Node.js install. Make sure you are downloading a Node.js because we are going to use Node for this, for Windows or Mac or source code, whichever you want. You can just install it. Normal installation procedure. As you are a developer and you'll be having some knowledge on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, definitely JavaScript is a mandatory to create an endpoint for specific this session, because we are using a JavaScript to create an endpoint over there. Okay, so once we complete this specific things, once we have done with the installation of the Node.js and Visual Studio Code, next, what is the next process? So coming back to my ChatGPT. So I'll just tell my ChatGPT, give me the code for CRUD operation. CRUD is basically a create, read, update. Okay, give me a code for a CRUD I'm just going to give me a code for a CRUD API using Node.js and Express with raw data. Okay, with raw data. Okay, something like, I'm just going to enter this. Give me a code for a CRUD operation. You can see it started giving me the code over here. You can see it's so good, right? You can see automatically it gave me the code. Just we need to use this and just test it over there. So we got the code now. So we got the code here. You can see it's telling me this is given the code now. So now I cannot simply copy this and just run it with your application, right? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work at all like that. Why? Because I'll just show you why it is not going to work. Because simply if I just copy this and run it, it's not going to be useful. So you need to understand how we are going to use this specific code and integrate into our Visual Studio Code folder and perform all the testing for get request, put request, and update and delete request over there. Okay, so now you can see it is telling me, remember to install the dependencies by running npm install express body parser over here. It is just giving me this kind of a response over here, right? You can see it is just giving me this kind of a response over here. Now coming back to my Visual Studio Code over here, so I'm just going to create any of the folder. I'm just going to create one new folder, empty folder. I'll just tell here as a API here. So I'm just going to create a folder name as API. Right click and just open with the Visual Studio Code. So this empty folder I have opened with the Visual Studio Code. Now I need to create the project now. I'm just going to open the specific terminal over here. The terminal is going to start from here. And once you have installed the Node.js, once you have installed a Node.js, you will be having one specific thing. You need to check it whether it has successfully installed or not. So I'm just going to open the command prompt. I'm just going to tell here as a node -- version. You can see, okay, node -- version. Okay, what was it? That is in node -VERA7 version over here. You can see 18.17.0 is my node version over here. It has been installed over there. Now coming back to my Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to tell npm init. So I'm going to tell npm init. We are initializing the npm repository. Npm is a node package manager that is going to create one specific folder for a project. It asking me what is the package name. I'm just going to simply enter it. I don't give anything. I'll just enter it. I'm just going to create one package.json file. You can see where our specific whatever the module, whatever the external packages we are going to install, we are going to keep it over there. So now once we are done, I'm just going to install one package, npm install nodemon. So what is nodemon is going to do? Nodemon is going to, whenever I write some piece of a code into this specific folder, whenever I just press Ctrl S, automatically our server is going to get restarted. So that is the one thing. So now I need to install npm install the express. So what is the use of an express over here? So what is the use of express? So express is going to do what? Express is mainly going to help us to transfer the data. It is going to provide one specific router. If I just show you the express npm, so you can see when I search for the express npm, okay, so here express npm over here, so you can see here it is one kind of a external package which is going to help us to send a get request, post request, put request easily into a very relevant manner, and it is going to help a lot for us. Okay, so this is why we are using an express.js over there. So once I come back to the code over here, this is the one thing over here. We have been installed the express also. So once we have installed the express, we need to install one more, that is, okay, let's don't need of using body parser right now. I'm just going to use this specific two packages. So once I install the package.json, so what I'll be doing it here now. Next, I'm just going to create one specific folder into it. I'm just going to create it as a API folder over here, APIs. I'll just create a folder name that is APIs over there. And along with that, I'm just going to create one specific file that is a server.js file over here. So into the server.js file, I'm just going to first I am going to initialize the express configuration over here. So I'm just going to initialize the express by using const express is equals to require express. So basically parallelly I'll be using this specific things, and I'm just going to paste it over here. Okay, so once I initialize the express here, so I have said I need to use an express for routing purpose, done. Then I'm just going to configure this express application. So I'm just going to configure the application with the express, and I'm just going to provide what is the host name and what is the port number. I mean to say here, what is the host name and what is the port number. Here the port number will be, it is an HTTP, it is SSL certificate I have added. Basically when we are using HTTPS, the port is going to use 443. And what is the host name here? The host name here is arkprocoder.com. But right now we are testing with the local, so the host name is going to be your 127.0.01 over here, and port number will be 3000 over here. And I'm just going to configure the one more thing, that is the app.listen port host name. I'm just going to tell I want to listen with this specific port, and with this specific port name, once if it is started listening it, once I start the specific server, I need to just show this specific output into my console over here. So that is what I wanted to show it over there. Okay, so now I'm just going to create one specific endpoint. Now I'm just going to create one specific endpoint, that is app.get. I'm just going to tell app.get request. I'm just going to use a get. So I'm going to tell whenever I see the local host, basically whenever we get it, we basically get the request and a response from this database over there, right? So whenever this happens, I wanted to just send the request.send, and I wanted to just send it with my browser with the backtick. I'm just going to use h1. I'll just tell here as a welcome to API. Okay, welcome to APIs. Close the h1 tag over there /h1. So just save it like this. So once I use this specific here, so once I just specific perform this, basically it is going to take one request and response. I wanted to just send the response to the server back over here. So I wanted to run this specific file now. I'm just going to tell node1, we have installed a node1, right? I'm just going to clear it here. So I'm going to tell node1, we have installed the node1, right? Because to start the server, I'm going to tell node1 server.js. It is just going to start the server over here. So once I run this specific command, you can see the server is running at the port number, this one. So if I just press Control and click onto this link, you can see the API is getting, basically it is just basically landing to the home page, basically a URL that is a welcome to the API here. You can see welcome to the API is being getting run over here. So this is how the things is going to work, and we are successfully able to create one in home page page now. Now let's create the APIs now. We need to create the APIs over here, right? So in the API folder, I'm just going to create one router. I'm just going to create one router.js file here. So I'm just going to create one router.js file. So into the router.js file, I need to initialize the endpoints, and here also I need to initialize this express, and I need to initialize the router. That is from the express.router. We are going to use the router for routing purpose over here. Okay. So now once we have this specific here, I need to export this specific router. I'm just going to tell you here as a module.export. I wanted to export this specific router over here. So whatever the router will be there, I'm just going to export it over here. So from here, I'm just going to come back to my data here. So whatever we had some data, right? And I'm just going to copy this data. Okay. So I'm just going to copy whichever the data you feel good, you can copy it, not any issues with that. So I'm going to copy simple data. So I'm just going to copy this three specific data over here. I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to come back to here. Okay. I'm just going to create one array data. Let data is equals to, inside an array, I'm just going to paste this specific data over here. Okay. So I'm just going to remove this comma here, and let's come back here, and I'm just going to start with the flower bracket over here. Okay. So now you can see it is one a JSON data over here. It is basically one kind of a JSON data where we have an ID, name, ratings here, and we have a project, we have used some kind of a JSON data we have over here, right? So for this, I'm just going to create the first endpoint, that is a get request endpoint. I'm just going to create it over here. So I'm going to mention here as a, it is a basically a get request over. It is basically a get request. With the help of a router which we have initialized from the express with the router.get, I'm going to use router.get over here. So I'm just going to tell here as a slash, I wanted to use something get data. So I'm going to use the API endpoint as a get data here. Okay. Slash, with this will be the endpoint. It is going to take the request, and it is going to return us the specific response, and it is going to be a callback over here. So whenever I get this here, whatever the response data, response.data. So I'm going to just send whatever the data we have, right? So this data I wanted to just send it over here. So I'm just going to tell response.json data. I wanted to send the JSON data, that is a JavaScript object notation data, whatever we have right now, we have initialized as a data here, right? This data I just wanted to send whenever this endpoint is getting called over here. So this is the first API we have created over here, right? First API we have created it over there. Now coming back to the server, here we need to configure, right? We need to configure whenever I get an endpoints, I need to send to this router file, right? That is the one thing I need to do it here. So for that, what we are going to do here is, first and foremost, I'm just going to configure this one. Suppose I'm just going to create one const. I'm just going to tell const specific like get datas, or else I'm going to tell const. Imagine this is some kind of a my website, that is a ERK. So I'm just going to tell const ERK is equals to require. I'm just going to use a require over here. So from this specific dot slash API slash router, from this specific API, I'm just going to get the data as a ERK over here. Okay. So from this, basically I'll be getting a data as a ARK over here. So from there, I'm just going to manipulate it, and I'm just going to send it over there. Now coming back to here, so we have a ARK here, right? Or I'm just going to create some kind of a datas here. So datas, I'm just going to create some kind of a datas over here. Okay. So from this specific datas, I wanted to hit this specific API slash router over here. So what I'll be doing now, so I'm just going to configure it here. Now I'm going to tell app.use. You need to use whenever you are going to use, whenever you are using an application JSON. So here I'm just going to configure onto the top, basically after this one. Okay. I'm just going to tell, first I'm going to tell app dot use. I want to use first, that is whatever the data will be there, that will be into the express.json file. Okay, this will be the express.json I wanted to get in. Apart from that, along with that, I'm going to use app.use. Whenever there is a slash API, whenever you are hitting a slash API, whenever there is an endpoint with this slash API, please look on to this specific data's router file. Okay, whenever I just get a endpoint with the starting with after a specific host name and a port, whenever the endpoint starts with slash API, I need to open this specific file, that is a data here. What is this data? This is our API router file, so where we are going to get this slash get data. Even I can hit like this, I can just tell here like this, I can just tell here as a http : that is a 127.0.0.0, port number is a 3000, right? Port number is a 3000 slash, we are using a API as an endpoint. Here you can see we are using an API as an endpoint slash, if I just go to the slash, that is a get data. Whenever I hit this specific endpoint, I need to get this specific response over here. That is what my agenda is. So once I start, you can see my server is up to running. Now if I just come back to this one and refresh it, now if I just pass this URL http, that is 1.0.0, port numbers API slash get data, if I enter it here, what happens here? You can see when I enter, there is nothing is happening right now, right? So if I just inspect an element tool, if I come back to the console or any network over here, if I just hit this endpoint again, so you can see nothing is happening. The pages keep on reloading it over here. So here, why that specific thing is happening? That is also one thing we need to, let's see whether what is that. You can see it is basically, it is not reaching that specific site over here, right? That is not able to reach the specific page over there. So we'll test it. How we are going to test? You need to go to these extensions and you need to install one extension, that is a Thunder client. You need to install this specific Thunder client. It is a lightweight REST API client for Visual Studio Code, so where we can test our endpoints with the very relevant manner over there. Okay, so once you have installed it, there will be getting a button install. Please install it. So once you install, you will be able to see here as a current symbol, right? Current shock symbol. Just click onto it, current shock symbol, and here I'm just going to close all the. Okay, I'm not going to close it. I'm just going to click on to this one, collections here. In the collections, I'm just going to create a new collections over here, or I can just create I can just create one new request, or okay, I'll just simply create one new collection here. First, how can I create it? I'm going to right click here. How can I create it? Okay, I think I can create with this right click. If I do, nothing is happening here. If I just click on manage account extensions, convert documentations, okay, I'm going to close this first. Okay, I'm just going to click onto this box. Okay, here I can just click onto the new collection. So I'm just going to tell here as a APIs here. So when I click onto the APIs, it is a new folder is being created. I'm just going to click onto this new request. I'm just going to tell this is a request name is a get request over here. Okay, for the get request, I'm just going to select this specific URL, that is HTTP and 127. So I'm just going to look on to the other request how I have been used. Okay, the same thing I have been used, HTTP. Okay, fine. Okay, here I need to use here not a 0, I need to use it as a 1 here. Okay, so I think that was the error. So now if I just paste that specific thing with the 1, now if I enter, you can see congratulations. Okay, previously I just done one mistake, I was using 0. You can see I was able to get the entire data. So whatever the data we have initialized with the server, you can see whatever the data we have created here, IDs and ID4, whatever the data we have here, I was able to retrieve the specific data. So same thing we can test it with the endpoints also. With the endpoints, I can just tell here this, if I just click on to a send request, okay, I'm just going to click on to the specific send okay, not this one. So if I just come back to again APIs here, get request, and in the get request, if I just click on the send request, you can able to see here I was able to pass the data 1, 4, 6, all the data I was able to pass it over here. That means I was able to retrieve the specific data to it, and even you can see I was hitting the specific endpoints also. If I right click and inspect element tool, and if I just come back to the network tab of it, and if I just simply enter again, you can see the endpoint is getting hit over here. Okay, and here basically it is hitting the endpoints, and if I just click on to the all, you can see I was able to hit this specific endpoint, and able to even in the response also I was able to see the specific data wherever the API is getting hit over here. So these things we can do it with XHR object fetch Axios. Whenever we are working with the front end, we can use those specific Ajax for retrieve this specific data from an API and just bind it to our front end web applications over there. So that is also is been done over there. So let's coming back to the next point here. So now coming back to the next, that is a post request. So now I wanted to create one specific post request thing now. So let's see how can I create a specific post request. So I'm just going to test from the ChatGPT which has been created. So I can see it is just creating this specific here they are using a body parser, but I don't want to use a body parser. So I'm just going to tell same thing. I'm going to tell give me the CRUD with give me the CRUD for the CRUD API using a Node.js and SQL without body parser. Okay, without body parser. Let's see whether it is going to give us or not. So you can see it is now it is able to give. You can see I wanted to just keep it simple. Now you can see it is just creating a get request, and we can just find this specific API and post request we have, and we have an update, we have a delete, and we have a listen for this specific port number also we are having it here. Now what I'll do here is I'm just going to, this was the example I just shown you, and I'm just going to simply do what, I'm just going to copy this let books here. I'm just going to copy this let books, and I'm just going to come back to my router here, and I'm just going to remove this specific data, and I'm going to use this specific example. Okay, I'm just going to use this specific, that is a book over here. So we have a books over here. Fine, we have a books here. Done. Now coming back here, this we have already initialized. Now I'm just going to tell whenever we are going to get app.get, I'm just going to use this specific app.get. Whenever I want to just use this specific app.get / book, it has to return us these specific books. Okay, fine. I'm just going to save this. You can see here I'm just getting an application / here. It is telling me app is not defined. It's telling me that is what app is not defined over here, because I need to use router here, not an app. I'm just going to use a router here. I'm just going to do one small change. Okay, router.get request, I'm just going to use it. Now I think the server is running. Yes, it is running right over here. You can see it is going to return us the books. Coming back here, now I wanted to get one specific book based on a specific ID here. At a time I can use this specific code here. It is going to do what? It is just going to, if I just pass the search ID, it is just going to convert the data, and it is going to find it, and it is just going to return us this specific book over there. So I'm just going to tell copy this one and create this specific endpoint for the books. This time I'm just going to replace this with the ROUTR router over here. When I tell here router.get /book /id, if I just pass this /id to it, what happens? I need to pass one ID, either a 1 or a 2 or a 3. It is just going to stuck from this specific book and return as this specific book if it is present. It is also one kind of an endpoint. I now want to create one new book. I wanted to create one specific new book now. I wanted to create one new book now. That is basically a create request, right? It is a CRUD operation. So I'm going to tell router.post. I wanted to go to the /books. Whenever I use a /books, when I use the method as a push request, that is I need to use the post request. When I use the post request thing, at that time what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create one new request.body and push that specific book into this specific new books over here, and return this specific JSON of new book over there. That is also has been going to work. When I wanted to update one specific book, I can just use this update operation. So this is also one new API. Update a book by ID. When I use an update a book by ID, I need to pass an ID. I need to use a put operation for this to update this specific book. Whatever the data we are going to pass in the book body, and it is just going to map it, and it is just going to, if it is present, we are just going to update with the new book whatever we have created, and return us back the response over there. And last and foremost, we have a delete request. I'm just going to use this specific delete request over here. So I'm just going to replace this app with router. And same as it is for the delete, I'm just going to replace this with the router.delete over there. So once it is done, now we are just going to test now. Let's test with the API, that is a get request, right? So now open it get request now. So basically what is the URL we have given? That is basically we have used the /books, right? So it is going to find out /APIs and is going to see this /books. So let's click on send. Congratulations, you can able to see, right? You can see whatever the books we have, we were able to get we are able to hit that specific endpoints, and we were able to iterate the specific in that. Let's check the second API. So this is the second API finding a book based on a specific ID. Now I'm just going to tell slash, I'm just going to create a new API here. So I'm just going not here, I'm just going to create a new API, that is a new request, that is a get with ID here. Okay, this will be the new request. I'm just going to copy this request and come back here, paste it, /1, enter. Wow, you can see our ChatGPT code is running up to run over. It's perfectly running, right? Just we need to know how we can copy and paste it into a correct place to work on with. Okay, if I come back here with the 1, basically what happens here, it is just taking an ID as 1, and it is just going to convert with the integer value, and it is just finding with the present data. If it is there, it is just going to return us, or else it is tell book is not found. Let's see if there is a search for 11. You can see message, I got a 404 status error here, and it is telling me book is not found. It is also working perfectly. Now let's create a next request. I'm just going to create a post request over here, enter it over here. So when I come back with the post, how you will get to know it is a post request or get request? You can see here we are using a get, here we are using a .post, here we are using a .put, here we are using a delete. So in that way we are using these all the major APIs, REST APIs requests which we are going to be used. Now coming back to the post, it is going to expect us 3 things, that is a ID, title and the author over here. So I'm just going to copy it, I'm just going to come here, I'm just going to tell here it is a post request and I'm just going to pass here as an and a header. I'm just going to tell here as it is application, that is a content type will be the application JSON over here, and coming back to your body here I need to pass the specific data in the JSON format, that is ID, title, book. So make sure you are passing a correct thing here. So I'm going to tell you in this I'm just going to tell here as a that basically I wanted to insert an ID, that is a 4 over here, and I'm just going to tell that is a title, and here also author also I'm just going to mention with the double invert code, and here I'm just going to pass this is a book 1, right? I'm just going to tell this will be your, I'm just going to remove this, I'm going to tell it in the double quotes, that is a book 3, this is a sorry book 4, and I'm just going to tell the author name, I'm just going to give it here as a, and is over here separate with the commas over here. Okay, and I need to just copy this URL same, and I'm going to just paste it to the post request just for a testing purpose. Okay, if I come here, I hope all the things I have correctly mentioned it, as it is using a /books, and yes, it is going to use a /books, and we need to pass the data request or dot is going to expect the request from the body, and we need to pass the specific data, and it is just going to push it over here, right? Now coming back to your post request, now let's hit this endpoint. Wow, you can see when I hit this endpoint, it is inserted, the specific data has been inserted. If I come back and hit this API, you can see whatever the newly inserted data I have inserted, that data has been inserted and is giving us the correct response, that is a book 4 has been inserted over there. So this is how the post request is going to work. I hope you have understood this one, it's very easier. Same thing, I'm just going to duplicate this one, I'm just going to rename this with a put request. It is basically a put request over here. So when I'm using a put request, I'm just going to just change it post to put over here. While I'm updating a data, what it is expecting, let us see. It is whenever we are updating a data for a put request, it is going to expect one ID here. It is going to expect the ID and the request parameter from it, and it is going to update it over there. Okay, now coming back to your put request here, right? I'm just going to maintain this as a put request, and I wanted to change the ID of 4 to 3 here. So I'm going to tell I wanted to just change the ID of 3. I wanted to just change the book 3 here. I'm going to tell you as a Anis Rahman over here. When I send this, wow, you can see this specific data has been updated. How to test it? If I come back to the get request, previously you can see we had 1, 2, 3, 4. When I hit this endpoint, you can see there was 3 was changed to 4, book name has been changed to book 3, and Anis Rahman has been working it over here. This is how this specific thing is going to work. Now I'm just going to duplicate this get request, and I'm just going to rename. Now we are just testing for the delete request. We are just going to rename with the delete delete over here. Whenever we are seeing a delete, what it is expecting, it is just basically expecting an ID, and we are need to use a delete method over here. Okay, coming back to your delete request, I'm just going to change this as a delete, and I'm going to tell from the books I wanted to delete the ID, that is 3. So once I enter delete 3, you can see the book has been deleted successfully. I'm getting a message based on the code over here. When I come back to the get, if I request, you can see whichever the ID was 3, both the book has been deleted over there. If I try to delete again, you can see book is deleted successfully. If I still delete 31, till it is giving the same thing. Even we can handle this thing, but it is working fine. But we can check one more condition, like here itself, if the book is not present, I wanted to just tell book is not found. Okay, like that. Now this is, if I come back to the delete again, if I wanted to delete an ID that is 1 here, if I enter, you can see book is deleted successfully. Now if I try to see this specific data, even in the URL, I will be able to see it. If I just try to see this, you can see I'll be having only book 2, because book 1 I have been deleted over here. So this is how the entire CRUD operation we have seen with the help of APIs. We created an API, we tested, and we saw with the real time. I hope this video got a lot of information for you guys, how the APIs can be created, and we understood with the ChatGPT's code, and we saw how it is going to work with real time. This code I will be pushing with my GitHub account. You can access the specific code and work with your entire in your system. Thank you guys, thank you for watching this session. Please subscribe to my channel, like, share and subscribe it, and forward it with your friends. I'll catch you with the next session.